And I want to say a few words about Easter as we begin. Easter is a very interesting holiday. It's an interesting holiday because I think more than any of the other religiously based holidays in America today, it is the most weirdly and diversely engaged and celebrated, right? I mean, from kids who literally think it's the day of the bunny, right? It's true. I mean, that it's like Santa Part 2. Kind of a distortion. And then on the other end of the extreme, it's one of the most holy days for many people in the Christian tradition. And then there's all of us, I guess, in between. And each one of us, because of our childhood and our personality and our spirituality, our culture and our experience, we have a different ways to relate to Easter. And some might wonder, what does a place like this? Oh, and don't be shy, you guys in the back. We have a front row. I'm looking at you. We have a front row, and you can sing with Wendy, and there's seats here. Okay, people are shy. But in a community like ours, some people might say, well, wait a second, I came because I heard it was a good service, or we heard Queen City Jazz Band was coming, or I actually ended up at the wrong place. I thought it was the Unitarian Center. Happens. Isn't this St. Barnabas? No. So people ask, well, what makes Althea Althea? And there are a number of things that make this place so special. Its origin over 116 years ago in Pueblo, Colorado, a small community of women mystics, women who not just believed but felt and lived the reality that God is more than just a being, but God is spirit, energy, consciousness, everything, our source, our substance, the very design of our universe, and how we may engage it for peace, for healing, and a better life. And that same core message, that same core thread of God as oneness, God as spirit, energy, has maintained and pervaded all that we are and all that we do to this very day. And so some would say, well, a place like that sort of attracts people that are more, quote, spiritual than, quote, religious. I don't know if I did the quotes right, but anyway, you know what I mean. And the reality is, this day is a day for all in the world of meaning and truth, all who seek, whether you consider yourself religious or spiritual, because the story of the death of Christ is one of the most extraordinary spiritual teachings in any tradition. And particularly for those who consider themselves on what you might call mystical path, a path of personal connection and deep study. The final days of Jesus give us everything we need to know, everything we need to remember in the most powerful and vivid example of divinity and humanity mingling together on earth. And as we begin, what I would encourage you to keep in the back of your mind, or I should possibly even say what I should encourage you to let go of in the back of your mind, is this kind of debate that we often have when we as humans show up in a place of belief and spirit. Do I agree? Do I not agree? Is this me? Is this not me? This is your time to be with your deepest connection to this message and this day. And the person beside you can have their own experience, and the person beside them will have theirs. But if you don't waste your time or your energy contemplating how we might be different, and instead really hold the power of this time, this teaching, then you may find something extraordinary here today, and not just the gift of song and music. The reason why I say this is because very often Easter evokes the great debate of Christology. Was he human? Was he divine? Was he both? Was it a mix? Did something change? I mean, clearly he was Jewish. It sounds like, was he human? Was he divine? Maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that. It's a little mix. They say he was a rabbi. He was kind of a rabbi. I don't. But in a sense, I think we're often asking the wrong question. It's not, was Jesus human or divine? I think it's clear. The answer is yes, and both. So let's not debate that. The question is, how are you different? Are you human and divine? And what does that look like for you? How do you hold the deaths in your life? Because that is the great teacher of this story. How Christ approaches the imminent and obvious end of his human journey and the steps he goes through in his heart and mind. And when we get to the message, I guess it's message number 2. When we get to the message, we're going to look at the last 7 things that Jesus was said to have said. But the point being that death, ultimately, you might say, is the force that brings life to all spiritual journeys. The death of relationships, the death of jobs, the death of identities, the death of ego. On the true spiritual path, death is the mother that gives birth to true awakening. And this is the most remarkable time of the year, the most remarkable contemplation and ceremony, where Jesus tells us all to be fearless and to say yes to our divinity. That death is just a doorway into a magnificent dimension that we have only yet to remember. So on that note, let's join in the statement of being. This is a beautiful, beautiful affirmative prayer that unites our community and has done so for over 100 years. And I invite you to read this beautiful meditation out loud together. God is all, both invisible and visible, one presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. We are individualized expressions of God and are ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance.